Hello! Welcome to part 2 of my analysis and comparison of SSX 3 and SSX Tricky. This time I'm going to be analyzing the characters in both games in order to see how they may strengthen or weaken both games' positions for being the best. I know it's been a hot minute since the first part, but I'm back, and I'm assisted greatly with the awesome feedback that you guys gave me on the last video. Thank you so much for all the critique and feedback. This stuff really helps me, and it's always appreciated. And please, don't hesitate to tell me what you think I can do better for my future videos. I always read all the comments that you guys post, and I love hearing what you have to say. So, without further ado, let's get into it. An overview of character study. Characters are the backbone of any series, and SSX is no exception. While you could play as a faceless, voiceless character and still enjoy the game, there'd be a serious lack of depth, charm, and character to it. Unique characters bring all this and more to the gameplay, helping provide the player with a different experience depending on which rider they choose. People often find themselves drawn to the specific qualities of a character, which cause them to identify themselves with that character and find a desire to get to know them better. In video game terms, this often simply means playing as that character. Both of the SSX games do a great job at introducing a variety of characters that players would be excited to meet. It's important for you to know that this section isn't really going to be a character analysis in the traditional style, as most of the characters don't have that much to them that can be analyzed in the first place. Rather, this is going to be a study of how characters are portrayed, how they interact with other characters, and how the player can use and customize them. Each character has their own personality and dialogue, and both SSX Tricky and SSX 3 display this to varying lengths. I'm going to begin with a study of how both games utilize and treat the characters, and then go into an analysis of how each game's methods strengthen the game's quality or possibly weaken it. I'll then summarize the main points I gathered from this analysis, and then give some closing thoughts. And again, this is my opinion.
Select character. Who do you want to play with?
SSX Tricky has 12 playable characters, and SSX 3 has 10. Some of these characters are old, and some are new. In 3's case, some of them are originally from Tricky. Each of these characters all have their own outfits, dialogue, and distinct personalities. A typical way that a player would become accustomed to a certain character in these games would be through the main game mode that game provides, with SSX Tricky having the World Circuit mode, and SSX 3 having the Conquer the Mountain mode. The World Circuit mode in Tricky takes you to a character selection screen, where you can cycle through characters you like to play and progress through the game as. As you win events, your character gains a new rank and receives points that they can distribute to attributes of the character that affect how they snowboard. The ranks go from newbie to master, and the changes that these ranks bring are very noticeable and effective. I'll get into this more with my analysis of the snowboarding in both games. For SSX 3's Conquer the Mountain mode, you choose a character and start on the lowest peak of a big mountain, Peak 1. Through winning events and getting money, you're allowed to move to higher peaks with more intense events. There is no ranking in SSX 3, and the way you upgrade your character is by spending money to increase your stats. Both games provide numerous ways to get to know your character. The best method is to check out the writer's profile, which both games provide. These writer profiles will give you facts about the character, their backstory, and an interview. They're interesting to read, and they're a good way to... Wait, go back. 22? Luther is 22? Are you trying to tell me this gun-toting, God-fearing whale of a man is 22? What kind of bullshit? Besides these mini-biographies, the best way to learn about your character is through the dialogue and voice lines that you hear during gameplay. These moments of input from your character give you a little bit of insight into the character's personality and attitude. For example, in both games, the characters will speak lines when they go off jumps, land tricks, or fail at tricks. They also speak lines at the end of the event in reference to its outcome. In SSX Tricky specifically, the character will often say a line before an event begins, typically in reference to the chorus.
Je vais graver mes initiales sur cette superbe pente!
Yeah man, I totally agree. And finally, both games feature a character relationship system. Character relationships are how the different characters in SSX interact. In SSX Tricky, an information menu is displayed before every race that tells you how each different racer perceives you, with descriptions like neutral, friend, or enemy, with different colors to indicate how strong that feeling is. If you push and shove other racers while riding, your relationship with those characters will get worse, and if you do too much, those characters will eventually become hostile towards you, and will attack you if you slight them in any way. Characters who are friendly with you will be more forgiving, and will let the occasional push or shove slide. These rivalries or friendships are often shown before and after the race in the form of conversations. All characters start with different relationships. Mac and Kiori, for example, start off as friends, and Kiori and Simon start off as enemies. In SSX 3, however, the system that I just explained has had nearly all of its noteworthy aspects stripped away. There is no more information about whether someone likes you or not. Rather, you're shown through an exclamation mark that appears over that character's head, and it changes colors based on how mad they are at you. Additionally, you can't have friends. You create enemies by punching and pushing other racers, and they'll get angry and fight back, but there are no special audio lines that the character will give, with the exception of the peak rivals. New to SSX3 is the peak rival system. There are 3 peaks, and there's one race that rules each peak. On peak 1, your rival is Mac. On peak 2, your rival is Nate. And on peak 3, your rival is Simon. These rivals will appear during the finals of events on their respective mountains, and are often the ones that you're going to be trying the hardest to surpass. Additionally, they're all already violent towards you, and will try to push and punch you down if you let them get too close. If you beat them in events like race or slopestyle, they'll approach you after the event and tell you to meet them on the top of the mountain for a one-on-one challenge. Coming along with the addition of the rival system is the MCOM, which is essentially just a cell phone that you can use to get messages from other characters. You can't send any text yourself, but you'll receive quite a few throughout the game, whether it be from a rival, other racers, or DJ Atomica himself. Lastly, there's the outfits, which both games have as a means of customizing your character. All characters in SSX Tricky start with a default outfit, and there are 5 more outfits that a player can unlock for a character to wear. These outfits are unlocked by doing specific tricks during events and filling out trick books. There are 5 tricks in the chapter, and 6 trick books total. SSX3 dropped the system, and, instead, allowed players to simply purchase pieces of clothing at stores. Each peak has its own supply of unique items and accessories, and there's a ton of variety here. All in all, both games give players a means to get to know their character better and learn more about them. In the next section, I'm going to discuss how each game's respective methods contribute to the quality of the game. So, let's see how the SSX games let the characters shine. Oh, fuck. A summary of differences and similarities. Characters. There's quite a bit to be said here, as both games utilize numerous methods for players to get to know their characters. That being said, some of these methods are far more effective than others. First off, I think one of the biggest differences between the two games when it comes to characters is the differences in the amount of dialogue from the player's character and the other racers. As mentioned before, in SSX Tricky, your character typically comments on the track before a race, or maybe talks to a friend or enemy. And while both games do have scenes where your character reacts to the end results of an event, Tricky also has your enemies approach you and talk to you, more often than when the rival approaches you in SSX3. I know it might seem strange that I'm focusing on something as seemingly unimportant as dialogue, but this is more or less the only way characters interact with each other. Simply put, Tricky has more situations in which characters interact with each other than 3 does. The frequency in which characters talk to each other in Tricky helps make the cast feel connected, like a group of people who actively engage with each other and have real conversations of feelings about each other. You know what's funny, in my last video I was talking about how the mountain in the SSX3 makes the game feel more connected, and now I'm talking about how the characters in SSX Tricky feel more connected. It's like both these games got some connection going on, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Anyway, the character relationship menu you see before every race only further drives home this feeling of connection, and it makes the cast more memorable. Of course, 3 has its moments of character interaction as well, but it's nowhere near as frequent. Additionally, this same feeling just isn't achieved, at least not anywhere near as effectively as Tricky did. I also think the presence of characters from Tricky that aren't playable, like Luther, Marisol, JP, and etc., actively go against this feeling I mentioned. They just feel like robots, racers that don't speak or interact with you ever. You remember how interesting and fun they were in SSX Tricky, and then you see them on the slopes in SSX 3. And I think I know what you're gonna say. But what about the MCOM? That's a thing that exists. You can get messages from the racers and they interact with you in the game just fine. And you're not wrong. The thing is though, is that these messages are only concerned with 2 things. Either A, they're telling you that they're mad at you for knocking them down during a race, or B, they're telling you to deal with your current peak rival. They're cute, but in the case of scenario A at least, I think it's a lot more effective for a racer to tell me how they feel about me face to face. Kind of like what Tricky does. The rival messages are fine, but like I said before, it'd be a lot more effective if I was told this face to face instead of over a text. Like, wouldn't it be cool if a racer came to you and was like, "Hey, take down Mac, he's a big ol' asshole." And I'd be like, hell yeah, like, let's do it. But instead, I just get a little text. And it's just some dumb little message. What the fuck is this? Also, I'm not sure if any of you share this experience, but whenever I started a new game of SSX3, I'd often do some events, ride around, get a good way into the game, and then I realized that I had 6 MCOM messages I never bothered to check. This could just be me, maybe I'm just too oblivious and I'm not noticing these kind of things when they happen to me, but it does happen every single time I play. When the only way you can see these interactions is by looking at a menu, you're not likely to see them at all in the first place. Now don't get me wrong, I know it seems like I'm just praising Tricky and criticizing 3, but SSX 3 does have a few strengths when it comes to its characters. For example, the character rivalry system. It's pretty cool, I guess. Nah, the character rivalry system is actually one of the better aspects of SSX 3 when it comes to character interaction and design. It has another goal to achieve for the player, a tangible obstacle in the form of another race that the player needs to overcome. You want to conquer the mountain, of course, but you won't be able to do it without making some enemies. This is a unique addition to SSX 3 that Tricky just doesn't have. It adds a lot to the game and it gives it a bit more depth. SSX Tricky doesn't give you any concrete goals, besides getting a gold medal in all the race and show-off events. And while you do have to take part in the rival events in order to progress in SSX 3, it's the least unique experience. The outcome of the event depends purely upon your ability to beat this one person who is adamant at remaining the king of their turf. It's rough and it's violent, and though it might not always be that hard, the competition is still there. The ability to customize your character is also greatly enhanced in SSX 3. The outfits you can unlock in SSX Tricky are great, but you can't beat the variety that SSX 3 offers. You can look like a normal racer, or you can look like this. The character customization in 3 is an absolute improvement over Tricky's outfit system. Sure, there is some gratification and accomplishment that is felt when you finally pull off that difficult trick and complete a trick book, but it simply can't beat the variety that 3 offers. And when talking about customization, I'd be remiss not to mention the trick customization options. In Tricky, your character has a set of uber tricks that they can perform and one signature trick that is unique to their character. 3 has this as well, but it also allows you to buy new uber tricks and customize what uber tricks you can perform. This is a huge improvement for a multitude of reasons, and it's something I'm going to get into more in my gameplay video. For now, I'll just say that you can't beat seeing Simon perform a pirouette grind. Now, for this last point, I'm going to get a little bit abstract, so try to bear with me. But I would argue that one of SSX 3's best and strongest characters is our boy, Big Mountain. The mountain is always present, as everything you do in the game takes place on the mountain. A new player doesn't know much about the game or about the mountain when they first begin at Peak 1, but they start to become acquainted with it and the people around it as they play. DJ Atomica, as mentioned in the last video, makes you feel at home with the stories of occurrences on the mountain, and before you know it, the Big Mountain feels like home. You explore every part of it, participate in all the events on it, and learn its ways. Courses become more than just courses, as they're really just smaller parts of this huge place that has a ton of personality. Tricky just doesn't have this with the way its setting works, so I think this is a huge point in SSX 3's favor. Let's discuss some of the main strengths and weaknesses of both games when concerning the characters. Character profiles are very informative and interesting. The character profiles in SSX 3 far surpass those in SSX 3. The numerous facts about the character, the longer backstories, and the fun interviews all help the player learn more about the character. Extensive use of dialogue and a well fleshed out relationship system. Characters talk a lot in SSX Tricky, and character interactions occur often. The characters all feel like they know each other well. Customization options for characters are weak. The outfit system is fun but limiting, and being constrained to specific uber tricks is a bit boring. Character customization options are extensive and numerous. The customization options in SSX 3 just bring so much charm to the game, and lets a player play and appear however they want to. A great announcer in a mountain that feels like another character. DJ Atomic is a strong character and is always fun to listen to, and the mountain is a welcome friend for all. Character dialogue and relationships are a bit weak. The characters in SSX 3 don't often really feel like a cohesive group like the cast of SSX Tricky does, and they don't really connect. The peak rival system is a good addition and a step in the right direction for the game, but overall, it just doesn't surpass how Tricky treats their characters. So, in summary, Tricky has strong and colorful character interactions, a wealth of dialogue and information, but a lack of customization. SSX 3 has a setting that also acts as a character, a variety of customization, but shallow character relationships. Alright, and that's it for the character study. I hope you'll enjoy this part of the series, and make sure to check back in for part 3, a discussion on the game's gameplay. I'm excited for that one. I think it should be pretty interesting. The best part of these games is the gameplay, so, should be cool. Thank you so much for watching. I know there was quite a gap between this video and the previous one, so I really appreciate the wait. I'm going to start working on the next part after I release this, so stay tuned for that. I think gameplay should be really cool. I'm really excited to study it, and I think you guys will like it too. And now I have a question for you guys. Who is your favorite SSX character? Leave a comment down below. I think mine is probably Simon. I stuck with him when I first played Tricky. I always thought he was hilarious and just a ton of fun to play as. But what about you? It could be from any game. Tricky, 3, the original SSX, On Tour, whichever one. Alright, and I think that's it. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a great day.